Hello, thank you for being in a new video. This time we have full review of the Xiaomi 13T. Let's get started. This is a device that for its price we could categorize it in a kind of entry high-end. Although honestly, talking about the price, it could vary too much depending on whether you acquire it with official distribution or with unofficial distribution. In Mexico, its official price at the date of recording this video is 18,999 pesos. On the screen, you see the reference price in dollars to give you an idea, but remember that the prices here are not the same as those there. You should know that with this price, Xiaomi includes as a gift the Redmi Pad SE, a considerably good mid-range tablet, of which I also made a video review in case you want to know it. On the screen, you are seeing the official distributors in Mexico of this device, so you are aware, but if you buy it with unofficial distributors, curiously the price drops dramatically, so you could find it for around 10,000 Mexican pesos, and for that price it's actually very attractive. So, the analysis of a device that has such a varied price gets a little bit complicated, but as always I'm going to base it on the official launch price. So it has pretty solid competitors in this price range, so we are going to demand a lot from it. It's time to get to know it point by point. On the front we will find a sufficiently attractive design as it has slightly reduced bezels, although not the most spectacular on the market. With respect to resistance, we do not have the most advanced because it comes with Gorilla Glass 5, which although it is a good resistance, I think that in this price range we could already demand Gorilla Glass Victus. On the right side we will find the power button with the volume buttons. At the top we find the secondary audio output, an infrared port to function as a universal remote control, and apparently 2 microphones. The left side is completely clean and simply serves to take a look at the frame, which is made of plastic. At the bottom is the nano SIM card slot. If you buy it with a phone company, you will only have 1 slot available, but if you buy it with other distributors, you will have the dual SIM option also available. At this bottom we will also find another microphone, the USB-C port, and the main speaker. The thickness of this device is 8.49 millimeters and has a weight of 197 grams, although these figures apply only for this edition that I have in my hands, which is the glass edition, which comes in black color. However, there is also an edition with synthetic leather that is thicker and lighter. For that edition it is available in blue, and in this crystal edition it is also available in green. However, for Mexico it only arrived in this option in black. The truth is that I don't really like this cover because it reflects totally glass type and that causes it to stain too much with fingerprints. Personally, I like more matte or satin designs, but that is a matter of personal taste and may vary depending on each person. The camera module is rather oddly embossed on the left and right sides, giving it a sufficiently original touch, although it doesn't strike me as the most attractive phone. The good news is that unlike many other Xiaomi devices, this one does integrate IP68 certification, so if you happen to drop it in water, it has a good chance of surviving. Remember that no manufacturer covers warranty for water damage, so although it could withstand short periods of time in the pool or salt water, it is not recommended to do so. If you want to risk it anyway, it is best to rinse it with pure water after submerging it in that type of water. The screen is 6.67 inches, like many screens that incorporate Xiaomi. However, in this case, the quality is of the highest that we will find in its entire catalog. The resolution is Full HD Plus and has a very good pixel density, so the level of detail that you get to reach is considerably good, ideal for viewing multimedia content or even for small texts. In addition, it will have AMOLED technology, compatible with HDR10 Plus content and Dolby Vision, so you can really watch movies and content with an exaggeratedly good quality. It has a fairly high peak brightness for this type of HDR content, reaching up to 2600 nits. Also, its refresh rate is 144 Hz, so overall I think each of the parameters results in a very good display with very good contrast, good color, and also very good viewing angles, so from either side it still maintains a very good experience. The detail is that despite being a screen compatible with HDR content, the content captured with this device will not be displayed with that experience unless you record with the HDR10 Plus setting on. Unlike other devices such as Huawei, Oppo, or Apple, where any content captured with the camera is able to emit more light in certain areas than in others. But I insist that it is an excellent screen which has a very high brightness level for a very comfortable outdoor use, and also the minimum brightness is going to allow you to use this device comfortably at night and in low light situations. Also, as I mentioned, it has a fairly high refresh rate, so all the movements you make throughout the system are going to look pretty fluid, but it's not always running at 144 Hz to try to save power, so it can vary. Its sampling rate is about ones of ones of ones of ones, so it responds very quickly to gestures. This is considerably good for gaming, although there are devices that offer even faster response, but they are devices that are totally focused on gaming. The attenuation rate is also amazing, reaching 2880 Hz, although that is imperceptible to the naked eye. But what it will do is that it will fatigue your eyesight much less when you are watching the cell phone at night. Let's talk about the sound experience. As I was telling you that it has the main speaker at the bottom, but this device is also capable of outputting stereo audio at the top, although up here it has two audio outputs, this one which is on the frame and also through the earpiece for calls. However, the bottom speaker will be the main speaker and the one in charge of emitting a slightly present bass frequencies, unlike the secondary speaker that does not emit any bass frequency practically, and from my taste has two high mid frequencies. So the sound quality did not seem surprising to me, although fortunately it does have good power in terms of volume. Now let's listen to a small test, although remember that it is not the same to listen to it live. One good thing about the sound experience is that it is high-res compatible and also includes Dolby Atmos, so you can customize your experience a little bit more. So you have some presets available and you have a 10-band graphic equalizer, also including some presets to quickly adjust the sound to your liking. Personally, I noticed that by turning up the first 3 bass bands, we will find a higher quality sound. So although the speaker did not end up liking too much, fortunately through the equalizer you can improve the sound. Please note the absence of the headphone jack, so if you want to connect headphones, it will have to be through the USB-C port or wireless headphones. In that sense, fortunately, it also supports high-resolution codecs like LDAC and LHDC, so if you buy headphones with that codec, you will also be able to enjoy well-defined audio. Below, you will hear some audio recorded with the microphones of this device.
Esta es una prueba de audio grabado con los micrófonos del Xiaomi 13T para probar su calidad.
I think the microphones serve their purpose, and there's not much more to say about them. The front camera is 20 megapixel with f2.2 aperture and fixed focus, having a 78-degree wide angle. Xiaomi's interface has changed in this generation and the capture speed is lightning fast, so in that sense the experience will be very good. And if we press and hold the shutter, it starts a quick recording of a short video, so in this front camera mode we don't have burst available. However, it does have good options added in this part, where you can change some settings, but what strikes me the most is that you can enable the easy capture mode by showing the palm of your hand, which allows you to take pictures more easily when the shutter is a little awkward to reach. It also has a timed burst option and has an option called auxiliary camera, which allows you to use the camera of another device of the same brand, something I had so far only seen on Huawei devices. However, at the moment I don't have another device with this software version to be able to test. In the bottom right corner, it also has a button to enable beauty mode with different parameters, so you have many options to blur the skin and enhance the face, plus filters that you have available to preview in real time. But now let's look at the results of this front camera, which is going to offer us a good level of detail and good color rendition. However, the fact that it has fixed focus means that you need to be at an optimal distance to get the maximum detail possible. If you have your arm more stretched out, the level of detail is likely to be reduced, although fortunately it is not reduced too much. However, in this photograph we also noticed a bit more graininess in the slightly darker areas. So although the photograph is good, I think it could still improve in several areas. In indoor environments, we are still going to notice a bit more of this graininess generated in the darker areas, although fortunately it still maintains a good saturation in the colors and also maintains a good level of detail. In backlight, unlike the main camera, it does not have well optimized preview, so it can look totally burned out. However, after taking the picture, it does a considerably good balance of highlights and shadows, albeit with a bit more contrast than I'd like, which is especially very noticeable on my t-shirt. In the evenings, the device will try to illuminate your face better by turning on a bit more brightness on the screen. However, if you are in a warm environment, the screen may cast its white color in a very cool hue and the picture will look very strange. If you are in an area of indirect light, the result really lacks a lot of detail, especially in the darker areas, where there is also a bit of a grainy effect. And even though the screen tries to illuminate your face, I don't think it does a good enough job of illuminating it. Fortunately, you can use the night mode on the front camera, and with that mode you definitely improve a lot the detail and especially the definition of various objects. So for me it's a must to use the night mode with the front camera on this device if you're going to take a picture in dark conditions. And in backlit night conditions, it's also a must to use night mode, although it would be much better if the screen could adjust its color temperature to have a bit more natural color. I was forgetting to mention you that the front camera also integrates a panorama mode in case you want a group photo, although it doesn't have a very good photo fusion. Also, in portrait mode, it is not able to detect objects, so the picture is not very natural. However, if you don't have any objects nearby, I think the photograph could be positive. In the evenings, I think portrait photography is very positive in terms of the experience, especially when compared to the portrait you might get from the main camera, which I had forgotten to show you. Notice how the main camera captures an exaggeratedly red tone in this warm environment, so hopefully they will compose this portrait. At the moment, I prefer the portrait with the front camera in the evenings. On the back, we have the 50 megapixel main camera with f1.9 aperture, optical stabilization and autofocus. And we're talking about a 24mm equivalent camera, so it's a camera with good breadth. However, if you want wider, we have the 15mm camera, ultra wide, with 12 megapixels and f2.2 aperture but fixed focus, so it won't be suitable for macro photography. The third camera is a telephoto camera of 50mm, that is approximately 2 magnifications. This camera is also 50 megapixels, giving us f1.9 aperture, which is quite remarkable for a telephoto camera. So it has very good light input and it also has autofocus. But before I show you the photographic results, let me show you how fast it can get to take the pictures. Let's try to capture number 1 so we can see if it captures fast or slow. As you can see, it looks like this device has a pre-buffer so that the capture is exaggeratedly fast even before pressing the button. Let's do a second test just to confirm what I'm saying. It seems that in this case I did manage to capture the exact moment, so it is very fast for captures. In addition to that, if we slide the shutter to the left, we can start a burst of up to 50 photos, with which it would also be very easy to choose the exact moment since the capture is really super fast. In the bottom right corner, we also have the option to access the beauty mode with a single parameter, unlike the front camera, and we also have the same color filters available. If we tap on the screen, we can adjust the focus and exposure, but it also has a professional mode in which we can move many more parameters, such as white balance, focus, shutter speed, which can go up to 30 seconds, or also the ISO, which can go up to 12,800. You can also adjust the exposure compensation and other parameters such as saturation, contrast and sharpness. One thing I like is that the Pro mode works with all 3 cameras, unlike other devices that are restricted to the main camera only. There is also the option to take this professional photograph in the 50 megapixel format and not only in JPG but also in RAW for more advanced post-development. You can also view the histogram and you have some other tools to avoid overexposure. So the device really offers a very advanced Pro mode, unlike other equipment that comes more limited. The device also has artificial intelligence to further optimize colors in case you want a more saturated color rendition. And although it does not automatically recognize documents for scanning, it does have a document mode in which it will be able to recognize the edges to automatically crop these types of photos. Although curiously, if you want to print it to a PDF, using the Xiaomi tool will be impossible because the option does not appear. However, if you select the Android print option, the option to save the file as PDF will appear. Finally, QR code scanning is enabled, so a button will appear on the action, although you also have direct access to Google Lens in the upper left corner. In high resolution mode, it does give you 50 megapixels, and yes, they are well utilized in this camera, so you can easily crop and still maintain a very good level of detail in all of these photos. In fact, for these 50 megapixel photos, Xiaomi adds a mode called Pro Cut, which is automatically going to give you different framing of the same photo in case you want to extract photos from there. Capturing pictures with fast movements is positive, as it doesn't show any distortion. Photos in auto mode, interestingly, will come out at 13 megapixels, and it seems to me that outdoors it's going to give us good contrast and natural color. Remember that if you enable artificial intelligence, you'll get a little bit more saturated color in case you want it that way, but on those terms, the truth is that the picture looks good to me. However, if we get more demanding, we could consider the chromatic aberration that is generated in some areas as a negative point, especially considering the higher price of this device. Obviously, at its lower price, we could forgive it this kind of little details as well. This is another picture with the main camera, and again we see a very good color rendition. However, we still notice slight distortions and chromatic aberration, especially more on the edges. This is a photograph with the ultra-wide camera, so you can see the space that is appreciated, and we also see that it has a good dynamic range in this type of outdoor photography. However, it keeps the chromatic aberration, and it is even more accentuated when we use this camera. So it is not perfect, and everything will depend on the price in which you find this device. By the way, you could also take panoramic pictures with the main camera, and it maintains a very good color, and there is no blending between one picture and another, plus it has an excellent level of detail. Here is another outdoor photograph to appreciate the zoom, which is 2x with optical quality, as it does have a 50mm lens. It's not such an amazing lens in terms of its range, but it is in terms of aperture. Here you're looking at a 5x zoom photograph that's digital. Now you have 10x digital, and the maximum you get is 20x, although it already looks a little bit exaggerated, the result. So I insist that the maximum zoom is not going to be amazing. Indoors, the main camera has excellent performance, keeping all areas free of noise and good color saturation, plus an excellent level of detail. The ultra-wide camera has a very similar result, although it has a bit more graininess and more darkness, but overall I think it performs well. And curiously, the telephoto camera, despite having good aperture in this photograph specifically, failed to maintain good detail. Probably because it does not have optical stabilization in this lens, and that prevents it from capturing with longer exposures to get more light. At night, the main camera from the automatic mode gives us a good performance, but in night mode it will intensify the colors much more to give more enhancement to the details as well. So I really like the result with the night mode. The ultra-wide camera seems to me to manage to maintain good light capture as well, even without night mode. But with night mode it manages to improve details, although there really isn't that much of a difference. Where you will get to notice more difference will be in the telephoto lens. In this case, I like the result we have with the automatic mode better. Here you can distinguish that we have a good aperture to have an excellent light entry and practically no noise, even in the darkest areas. However, enabling the night mode, the result becomes too saturated, and I do not feel that we are really in front of a better photograph, so it is curious. In backlit conditions, I love that the preview does look optimized, unlike the vast majority of Android devices. This is the first Xiaomi I've seen that before taking the picture, it gives us a very good preview without the burnt sky. Of course, after taking the picture, it further improves the result, having something positive regarding the balance of highlights and shadows. Although again, you know, this lens can produce a bit of chromatic aberration, but overall, I think backlit photography is a positive. Neither camera is a specialist in macro photography, so here you are looking at a photograph with the main camera. Notice how because of the aperture, we're not going to have an even focus, so at the edges you'll probably notice very out of focus content, but in the center we'll have very good focus. And if you have the 50 megapixel mode, you can really get to notice a lot of detail in an extreme way. So for macro photography, I would recommend you use the 50 megapixel mode, but ideally Xiaomi would have put autofocus on the ultra-wide camera to give you these close focus capabilities on that camera. Portrait photography is reserved exclusively for the telephoto lens. I find the result to be positive, and you can select yourself how out of focus you want the background to be. In this case, I think the bokeh effect was a little higher than ideal, but I insist that you can adjust that yourself as a user. However, you can tell that this is not a totally premium device due to some edges that you notice that are not well detected, so the most demanding people will get to notice these small details on the edges that even generate a cloudy effect in some cases. Fortunately, however, it does maintain the focus on foreground objects to give a natural portrait photograph. The video recording settings have changed position and it is now much easier to see and change this control. The good news is that you can record in 4K at 30 frames per second using any of the three lenses, unlike other devices where only the main camera supports this maximum recording quality. Another good thing is that if you want to record in full HD at 60 frames per second, it will also be possible to do so with any of the three lenses. There are other devices that cannot record at 60 frames per second using the ultra-wide camera, but this one can. Interestingly, you also have color filters available when recording video, although you can't use them when recording in 4K. Beauty mode and a bokeh mode are also available. When recording video, we will have a convenient slider for zooming, although there are no presets for jumping between the three lenses. We can pause and resume recording as well as take snapshots of this video, but we can't turn on the flashlight while recording, let alone rotate the front camera. So to do either of those two actions, we must first stop the video recording. If you tap on the screen, you can adjust the focus and exposure, but within the Pro mode, you also have a video recording mode where even an audio meter is added and all these parameters can be modified while you are recording the video. In addition, you also have a log recording mode if you want to colorize it in post-production, and it has an option called focus peaking that will allow a more precise focus. So it really offers very good options when recording videos. I found the video recording to be positive in terms of color and light management as well as the level of detail you get to achieve. Although in this price range, I think you could already find other devices that are capable of recording in 4K at 60 frames per second. But either way, I think that in 4K it maintains a good quality. Note how you can also record with the ultra-wide camera, the main camera and the telephoto camera in this same quality, although I think they don't maintain the same color consistency between all the cameras. But I do like that you are able to transition between all of these lenses. The maximum zoom in the video goes up to 10x, so again it won't be the most amazing thing. I think the ultra-wide camera is the one that picks up the palest colors when recording. Possibly in indoor conditions, you will notice this difference more. First, you are looking at a video captured with the main camera, and I think it has good color and good noise handling, even though the area was considerably darker, unlike the videos recorded outdoors. But notice how when you switch to ultra-wide lens, you feel very different colors and much more noise appears in the scene. So it doesn't maintain the same image quality. And I understand that it doesn't keep the same quality, but I would like it to have the same color, but it does look too different. In backlit conditions, I was surprised at how well it is able to balance highlights and shadows. Even when it detects a face present, it does a lighting optimization, but it doesn't feel like an aggressive jump. The truth is that in this regard, it is one of the best devices I've seen recently, even competing against several high-end devices. The funny thing is that if you enable HDR mode for video recording, you will notice a worse balance of lights and shadows, so I don't recommend using that option. At night, with the prime lens, you will have a good video quality because of the good light input that this lens has. We also have good color and detail, as well as low noise. However, you will notice an overly aggressive change when you switch to the ultra-wide lens, where we have much paler colors and more noise. You immediately feel it when you switch from one lens to the other. And regarding the telephoto camera, it's curious because it doesn't seem to be used at night. Which is rather strange because the aperture is supposed to be f1.9. So it shouldn't have any difficulty capturing light coming in well. But hopefully this can be corrected with some software update. Notice how in this other clip I manually started recording from the 2x lens and it looked too dark. I then switched to the prime lens, and when I tried to switch back to the telephoto lens, it stayed on the prime lens. I find the stabilization to be positive with the main camera without becoming its strongest or most attractive point, as you do notice a bit more movement, and if you're running, I think the compensating movements also become a little more noticeable. Fortunately, it also has a super stable mode that lowers the resolution to full HD but makes the movements do not look so abrupt even when you're running. So this mode is ideal for more action-packed scenes. And it also has another mode called Constant Video Pro, where we have the maximum stabilization applied, although in this case with full HD resolution. this would be the maximum stabilization, and it seems to me that it is of good quality. Although the truth is that the level of stabilization looks very similar to the previous mode, where we already saw something advanced. And we still notice some details there with the exposure, but the stabilization is really good. The focus seems to me to be fast and accurate enough, either with faster movements or with more subtle movements. Overall, I don't think it will be its strongest point, but it doesn't disappoint much in this aspect. What you do get to notice is focus breathing, which, shall we say, changes the size of objects a bit depending on the focus you're in. You'll notice it a lot in the background when it comes back into focus, as it seems like these objects get smaller. Although this is very common in cell phone lenses. This device also has a bokeh recording mode, although it uses prime lens and only artificial intelligence. So the result looks very strange. The edges are not detected very accurately, nor does it reduce the intensity of this blur and bokeh effect when I move away from or closer to the camera. Therefore, it feels a very fake and artificial experience. Oddly though, some objects it does manage to keep in focus, but sometimes they are in focus and out of focus within the same clip. So, there is still a lot of room for improvement for Xiaomi in this section. Slow motion can be in several modes. If you want to record a long period of time, you can have 120 or 240 frames per second, having a good result. And if you want the slowest, we have 960 frames per second. However, the slow capture is done in the last part of the clip, and this makes it very complex to capture, since it also does not have an automatic mode that captures exactly the moment of the movement. So in specs, super slow motion is good, but in real life it is bad. On the other hand, the fast camera fortunately does maintain stabilization, albeit slight. And by default, it's set to full HD, although you can bump it up to 4K, and you can also adjust its speed from 4x, which can be very useful for recording people's movements, up to 1800x, so you could even record plant growth. So we have a very good fast camera that the only thing I would improve would be the stabilization to make it a little more extreme. The front camera does not have the ability to record video in 4K, and that for me is its main weakness. In this price range, for me, it is unacceptable that the camera does not have these capabilities, but also does not have a very good color quality. It feels too exaggerated contrast at times, and in backlighting it doesn't perform well either. So it completely burns out those areas that have a lot of illumination. To top it off, it doesn't have autofocus, so you couldn't adjust that focus to show small objects in the camera either. Therefore, the experience leaves a lot to be desired. Indoors, you'll also notice little detail and more noise, as well as slower movements due to the shutter speed that is set to capture a bit more light. And at night, something very similar will happen. If you're close to a light source, you're going to get a decent result, but honestly, for this price range, you'd expect better. And if you start moving into areas where you have indirect light, there will be a lot more noise and a lot less sharpness. So it's not a device I can recommend for people who use the front camera a lot for video recording. At least at this price, I think you can find better options. The front camera does have the recording mode with bokeh effect, blurring the background a little more, although the performance is very similar to what we saw with the main camera. That is, some edges will feel a bit artificial, and it should also be noted that in this case the stabilization is disabled, and it is not able to keep objects in focus, giving a bit artificial result. By the way, here in the front camera you could also use slow motion, which is not something so useful, but it is present. And you could also record fast motion scenes with the same settings I had mentioned, so the fast camera does seem very positive to me. But one thing you'll notice for sure is that this device doesn't have dual recording mode. And this is very curious because Xiaomi in devices of past generations, even lower ranges, did include that mode. So it is very clear that this device could still improve with several updates. Regarding the software, we have very good news because it comes with Android 13, which already puts it as a factory updated device. And it also brings MIUI in its 14.0.5 edition. However, Xiaomi already promised you 4 years of software updates and 5 years of security patches. That is something that Xiaomi had not done in many devices, and that is why it is very good news. It looks like this device will have very good support period. Hopefully these updates will be of good quality. And as usual, Xiaomi adds good features to their system. For starters, we have the always on screen option with which we could keep some information, cover or clock on our screen even if we have the device locked. It has a wide enough variety, although it does not have a special store where you can download more covers. However, it does allow you to add your personalized photo, select the color, select also what information you want it to contain, and more details. So it can be a useful tool for those who want to keep a good customization on their mobile device. We are also going to find a section called Notification Effect, through which the edges of the screen can light up in a specific way when we receive any notification. Although not being a device with a curved screen, this effect can go unnoticed if it is upside down. It also has the option to detect the look so that the screen does not turn off while we are watching it. And it does have a smart sidebar through which we can directly open an application in a floating format. Although you should know that YouTube is not available in this format and you can only open 2 floating applications in this format at the same time. Fortunately, you can resize this small window, but it always keeps the same proportion. You can also minimize these windows quickly, but another small curious fact is that YouTube does not support this mode. Within the additional settings, you will also find the heart rate reader taking advantage of the fingerprint reader that is included inside the screen. So it can become a useful tool, although most use a smartwatch to do this action. However, out of curiosity or in case of an emergency, you could use it. Inside the gallery, we will have a very good editor with advanced artificial intelligence options. For starters, we could try to delete some objects. It can be manually or intelligently. Watch this example as I will simply lock the person I want to delete and it automatically detects it and does its job. The accuracy may vary depending on the complexity of this object, but it definitely looks very easy. But not only does it let you delete objects, it also lets you add a portrait photo effect, including various styles of bokeh effect, even if the photo was not captured in portrait mode. It also has an option to change the sky. So that's also very interesting. It does all of this through artificial intelligence and you can change the style of the sky that's being appreciated, and it also changes the color rendition to make it look appropriate with that style. There are some that are subtle and some that are a little more aggressive depending on what effect you want to apply. But notice how most of them will download if you haven't downloaded them, and you can get quite interesting effects by placing the sun behind the trees, or even some effects to simulate that it is a night photograph with movement of stars or also with the moon present. So these are interesting artificial intelligence options that can give you a plus. Finally, it is also worth mentioning the My Remote application, through which you can add devices to make this cell phone work as a universal remote control. You only have to select the brand, go through a small tutorial, and with that you will already have all the controls available. So the software comes well equipped, and of course most essential options are also available on this phone. This cell phone has an optical fingerprint reader inside the screen. It supports up to 5 registrations and its performance is considerably good, although not as fast as capacitive readers or ultrasonic readers. However, I think it is of good accuracy and reliable. In addition, being inside the screen not only has a modern look but also allows you to change the type of animation shown when unlocking. You can also tell it if you want it to emit a vibration when you do this action, and it has a shortcut option, although it seems you can't customize them. So if you unlock and hold your finger there, these additional options will appear, such as a QR code scanner, a search in the browser, or adding an event to the calendar. What I would find good would be to allow us to customize these accesses. In addition to this unlocking, it also has facial unlocking, although it is only in 2 dimensions, so the phone itself gives you the warning that people who look like you could unlock this phone. So for security, the most reliable thing to do is to use only the fingerprint reader. And for convenience, you can also keep your phone unlocked while connected to a smartwatch or Bluetooth speaker through this option. But something curious is that it does not integrate Google Smart Lock to be able to add some trusted locations and keep the cell phone unlocked there as well. For password management, this device has Google Autocomplete, although note how it is automatically filled in without first verifying through your fingerprint that it is you. Although I have already explained that this option can be enabled so that you have a little more security when remembering all your passwords, however, I believe that this option should already be turned on by default. Through the security application, we can access more options such as an application lock to have a second layer of security, even if you have lent your phone unlocked. You can use your own lock screen pattern, or you can set a different one and simply select which apps you want to re-request your fingerprint, which is quite an attractive feature for those looking for more privacy. There will also be available the option of dual applications to have 2 accounts of the same application on this device, or you can have a second space so you have 2 cell phones in one, each space with its own applications and files. There is also an option to hide applications, but there is no child mode, unlike devices like Oppo or Samsung that do include that option. If you happen to lose your phone, you have the Google Find My Device option, although it is not as robust an implementation. However, you also have an option from Xiaomi, although it is turned off by default, which is inexplicable to me. So you must go into the Xiaomi Cloud settings to turn this option on, and it is highly recommended that you enable this option because Xiaomi does have a more aggressive lock in case you happen to lose your phone. In short, it offers us good protection and privacy features, but it lacks the kids mode. The battery is 5000 milliamps, although in my test it performed less than the average performance of devices with the same capacity. So apparently the battery will not be so spectacular, especially for the management that makes applications running in the background. Although you always have the battery saver mode available in case you want to further optimize your power consumption, or you also have the performance mode if you want the battery is not taken care of and squeezed to the maximum. But for some emergency, there is also available the ultra power saving mode that will restrict all kinds of applications, allowing you to access only the essential functions, although it also lets you add applications that for you are essential. However, use this mode only for emergencies. Xiaomi promises 16 hours of video playback with this device with respect to its battery. However, if you have a lot of things running in the background, the device doesn't seem to optimize them very well, so those background apps could consume a lot of power as well. Fortunately, when it comes time to charge the cell phone, you have a 67-watt charger that in 15 minutes got me back to 45% of the charge. In 30 minutes, it reached 79 and finished charging in 46 minutes in the test I did. You also have the optimized charging mode, so the battery doesn't degrade as quickly. Although it doesn't have a charge lock like some other devices, but I think optimized charging can come in handy as well. Also, if you see it necessary, you can disable the 5G to save a little more battery. So I think the battery life is not the most remarkable thing, but fast charging can be a strong point. This device does have support for 5G networks, and even in the security application, you also have an option to block data usage. So you can say which applications can access the internet through your mobile data and which applications can only access through Wi-Fi. In Mexico, something very curious happens because if you buy this device with phone companies, you will only have the option of a single SIM. However, if you buy it from distributors other than phone companies, you can have 2 SIM cards and also a virtual SIM that can be very useful when you travel, since you only have to scan a QR code to add a data plan. But I insist that all this varies depending on the different regions. Regarding Wi-Fi networks, it does support Wi-Fi 6, so it will offer a very good download speed depending on your internet provider. And the Bluetooth connectivity is 5.4, so it has the latest protocol, so you have very good stability. It also has NFC, so you can make mobile payments through Google Wallet or compatible apps by bringing your cell phone close to the banking terminals, or you can link to NFC devices easily by bringing the back of the cell phone close. Regarding the sensors, there are no complaints as they all work properly, including a physical proximity sensor, unlike other Xiaomi devices that bring virtual sensors. So overall, the device comes very complete. The Xiaomi ecosystem is one of the most complete you're going to find, offering us a myriad of products. They currently have several smart bands, watches, tablets, even TVs, and many products for the home such as a pet food dispenser, shavers, toothbrushes, light bulbs, scales, backpacks, and much more. In Mexico, they still don't have their laptop available, so that's a pending issue. But the ecosystem is really very broad, as it also covers the Redmi and Poco brands. However, as a system integration, it bets on Google Home, which is quite strange, as I would like more to have Xiaomi Home available here. In fact, the Xiaomi Home app doesn't even come pre-installed on the device, and I think in that sense it still feels like an inconsistent Xiaomi ecosystem experience. On cloud storage, they bet on their collaboration with Google, offering you 100 gigabytes of free storage on Google One, but for 6 months, and a YouTube Premium subscription for 3 months. So they have a close enough collaboration with Google, but that makes Xiaomi's brand lose a little bit of punch because they don't offer you Xiaomi Cloud, which is available but you can't back up your photos there anymore. You'll notice that now in the gallery it's integrated with Google Photos backup, so in some things the manufacturer is still quite dependent on Google, and I would like it to be a little more independent. Let's go to our performance test because this device integrates the MediaTek Dimensity 8200 Ultra processor. a fairly recent and good quality processor. In Mexico, the edition with 12 gigabytes of RAM is distributed, although globally you can also find the 8 gigabyte version in other countries. In addition, it has virtual RAM with up to 8 extra virtual gigabytes, although by default the option of 4 additional gigabytes of virtual RAM is turned on. It took an average of 2.1 seconds to open each of these applications. So definitely in this sense it is an overly powerful processor that will give you a super smooth experience. No complaints at all regarding the opening speed, as I even got a few taps wrong, and really the device is very responsive. It's on par with what you would expect from a device in this range, which really is very expensive, but the processor fortunately responded very well. And you're also noticing that the RAM is well utilized, because in this case it has a ton of RAM, including the virtual RAM. We would count 16 gigabytes of RAM at this point, and it does seem like it's well utilized. We have not seen any application restarts, and handling applications we will also see that it performs considerably well. We don't see any moments where the device locks up when scrolling, only moments where it's going to load new content, which is pretty normal on any other device. But really the experience seems to be very snappy, very good, and not slow at all. Consider also that it has 256 gigabytes of storage, so you will have plenty of space available to store all your documents, files, and games. Although it does not have expandable storage, that's why you should consider cloud storage options if you want to save all your memories. Finally, let's do the test of exporting a video with a total duration of 1 minute, joining several clips recorded with this device in 4K resolution, and let's see how long it takes to finish exporting the video completely. It finished in approximately 36 seconds, so in this respect it still lags slightly behind proposals with Snapdragon processors. However, the performance is still very good considering it was a video in 4K. To manage games, the device includes an option called Game Turbo, which curiously is enabled from the security application, and when you open it says Game Space, so Xiaomi still does not eliminate these inconsistencies. In this application, we can see all the games that we have installed. We are also going to be able to adjust performance parameters. If we want the device to deliver all possible performance, or if we want a power saving, we can also select it through here. So there are several parameters, and this is always good because it even allows you to select the maximum frames per second that you are going to allow the game. It also allows you to select some touch control parameters, and when you enter a game, you can swipe from the side to access these additional Game Turbo options, where you can get to optimize the performance if you want to push it to the maximum possible. You can also open applications in a floating mode to answer a message or notification without the need to leave your game. From this section, you can also enable the Do Not Disturb mode, take screenshots, screen recordings, access the complete settings, as well as an image optimizer with which you can change the interpretation of colors. And you also have an option to turn off the screen in case the game is downloading some content and you want to save a little more battery, since the game will not be suspended even though the screen is completely off. You can also perform a wireless screen projection, although in that sense I should also tell you that the device is not capable of projecting its screen via cable, although it does have Android Auto, something I had forgotten to tell you about. You can also change the style in which you receive notifications so they don't clutter the screen too much, and you have a voice modifier and timers for compatible games. So the device adds good options through software, but let's see how it does in performance. In Call of Duty, by default, this device loads high quality at a very high rate. However, very high quality and maximum rate and even ultra rate are also available. However, by enabling the ultra rate, the graphic quality is set to medium. Having the very high quality enabled, you have several effects available, which is a bit strange on devices with MediaTek processors, but it comes pretty good. So it's strange, but it does have very good graphics support. However, with the ultra rate and medium quality, you don't have all the graphics options supported, but either way, I think it's going to be a good experience. With the maximum rate, the experience was too good, so we have very good graphic quality and also good fluidity. The truth is that there is not much to complain about here, as the experience was exactly what one would expect even without reporting too much heating. So, it is a device that I see as a positive experience when playing this content. With the ultra rate, we even see that it does go up to 90 frames per second, which is very good, maintaining very good stability. So, The experience again is going to be totally positive. Just note that some other devices at this ultra rate do go up to 120 frames per second in multiplayer, but anyway, the experience really is very good on this device considering all this fluidity and also that it doesn't drop the graphics quality too much. The Legends game always adjusts automatically, but for the test we manually set it to ultra quality, which is the highest at 60 frames per second. Although this game is curious because despite selecting 60 frames per second, it actually goes up, but in this case the stability was reported very low because it had started at 120 frames per second and then adjusted and remained totally stable at 60 frames per second. So we could say that it did have 100% stability because in the settings we didn't even select to go over 60 frames per second. So we have a very good stable experience with very good graphics and good fluidity, although in this case the temperature did start to rise considerably high. So certainly with some heavy content, the gaming experience is going to be a little uncomfortable if you select the higher graphics and settings, because it may not have as many layers of cooling. To give you an idea, we had been monitoring the game for about 5 minutes when it was already reaching this high temperature that starts to get annoying. In the SpongeBob game, this device by default selects medium quality and the resolution also on medium. However, for the test we turned it up to the highest as we are talking about an expensive device, also going up to 60 frames per second with smoothing enabled. Again, the experience was completely good with these settings, so it's a device that I insist can give you a very good gaming experience as long as you're in a cool environment, as again the heating could get slightly higher than we'd like, but again the experience is considerably good. Only I would consider that it is not such a viable option for those who play very long games with too high graphics, since in that case the ideal will be to lower the graphics quality so that the device does not get to heat up so much. Finally, in Henshin Impact, this device by default chooses the medium graphics quality. However, for testing we turned it up to high quality, and with respect to frames per second we turned it up to 60, while in motion blur we turned it up to very high. And again, the experience in this game was extremely good, totally stable, very fluid, although again with a slightly higher warm-up than we would have liked. However, for those who are not going to play very long games, or if you are going to play in a totally cool environment, you could have a good experience. The truth is that I was surprised by this processor, since MediaTek's processors have generally not performed very well in games. But this one seems to be much better optimized, although the heating issue could still work against it in very long games. For the moment, this has been all regarding this device. I hope you liked this video review. If you did, you know you can let us know, and we'll see you next time.